We're going to go over this stuff. We're not telling people what to do. We're not claiming we're professionals in this shit. We're not claiming we're hotshots, anything like that. We are simply telling our experience and then telling what we think went well, what went bad, what we would change for the purpose of other people taking this information, using it how they want to, and then moving it on to learn from. I think in the future, maybe having other people come on via video chat and just discussing it with them and get their stories and get that started to go out there. You guys may see Jack on here more. I think it'd be kind of fun maybe if we can do the both of us on a video chat with someone, just so we can get different questions going.
I would love to be your co-host.
Yeah. Sometimes it may just be me. I'm in, like, those of you that follow the page probably have an idea, but I work full-time on an ambulance. I'm in paramedic school, so my free days are kind of few and far between. Like, we're literally doing this on my one day off this week, so it's not going to be consistent. If this flops, it flops. If it's a huge success and people like it, then we'll keep doing it. But yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoy the episode and have a good one.
Misfit Med Podcast number 1.
Speak up a little bit.
Misfit Med Podcast number 1. My name's John Forsman. I'm the chief of Seabird Ocean Rescue now. This is going to be my 11th summer working on the beach, and I took over after our late chief Mike Hudson passed away. I was the first lieutenant when he passed away, and the chief position fell into my lap.
And how long have you been captain for?
Captain
or chief?
Chief, this is going to be the 3rd year. Interim was 2022, and then now full-time 3 years.
Cool. And for those of you that don't know,
where's the mic?
It's in the camera.
Okay.
I work ocean rescue underneath Jack here. I've worked there for 5 seasons now. This is either going to be 6 or 5. But I was lieutenant under Jack and under Chief Hudson for a hot second before he kicked the can. But the incident we're going to talk about today, I think it was, I forget what year it was. What, do you know what year it was?
I think it was 21 because it was the year before. I was still a sergeant. I wasn't a lieutenant at the time. I don't think you were.
No, it was my 2nd year.
Yeah, so.
So it would have been, yeah, it was the year after I graduated college.
Yeah. It was 21. But to go off of what you said in the beginning, first responding in general, especially like ocean rescue, firefighting, EMS, you only learn the most from failures, I feel like, or just like you do a call and you mess up, and then it's like, then you come back and you talk about it. Thankfully, this one was, I guess, considered a success because
I mean, the person was already
there wasn't a lot
easy.
that we had to go back and really learn from, but it was just something that I feel like that people can learn from just from our own experience.
Yeah.
Because it's something that's it's so rare. Yeah. It's not something that happens all the time, and that we were learning while we were doing it, and it was kind of like it was something that happened so fast that we had to just kind of on the fly figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was 2021. I'm gonna go over what I just remember from the day because it was a really gloomy day. I remember it was like. It wasn't raining, but it was just like overcast.
Was it a weekend or a weekday?
I think it was a weekday.
I think it was a weird time.
The beach wasn't super packed, but we had. I think it was closer to the end of the year because HUD wasn't around as much. I think it was maybe late July, maybe early August. But it was kind of like understaffed. I think we sent people home, but it was a red flag day. I know that.
Yeah.
And we only had like our 2 main stands open, north and center. And I don't think either one of us were sitting at the time. You might have been.
I remember I was on a patrol with Mason, and we were coming back when it got hit out.
And I was up in 0, and I remember, I think Chad Murphy, he's the chief of Seabird Fire Rescue. He came over our radio first and was talking about a citizen fisherman boat spotted. What could be a body floating in the water in like North Beach, like over, I think maybe by Via Ripa, but maybe a little south.
And just to preface this is a body recovery is what the incident we're talking about.
That's what it was called out as, and we didn't know if it was going to be balloons.
Yeah,
we didn't know
I think it was dispatched too as like a body in the water, so it wasn't clear at the time whether or not this was a rescue or a recovery.
Just went down.
Yeah,
He's been in there for a while.
What the deal was with that.
But so that's when.
Nor if it actually was
and our chief, my cousin, wasn't working that day. I don't know what he was doing, but he wasn't on the beach. So I forget who was in charge of the beach that day. Could have been Grippo, could have been Maloney, could have been an assortment of people. But anyway, I was the jet ski operator, and when it came out, we decided we're going to launch a ski and we're going to go get on scene and figure it out. So at the time, like me and Will have done a decent amount of just training on the jet ski together. So when it came out, I decided I'm going to take him as my rescue swimmer. We're going to launch. It was a good 3 to 4 feet and choppy, and it could have been 5 foot sets. But
I remember it was miserable.
And it was high tide too. So
it was cold.
It was pretty chilly.
Yeah, it was not.
So we had.
warm.
I don't think I had my rash guard with me. So
that's one of the points. Actually,
I was just bareback, life vest and my fins, and so we launch a ski. I remember it was pretty gnarly on the launch. I remember how I think I went out and then a set was breaking. I had to turn around, come back, settle for a second, and then go over a few sets and then get out past the surf. You swam out, picked you up, and then we started responding, and then we were kind of off comms for a few minutes or so just to get there as fast as we could. We see the boat, and we're a good quarter mile maybe. I think it could have been quarter to a half mile.
Because it was off on the north side of town,
Yeah.
so it was a little bit of a hike on the ski with chop.
Yeah, it was
and then
a bumpy road.
We were far enough out. The one guy caught the video of it, I think,
through
on
binos.
A bino.
Yeah.
And that was fuzzy, but I want to say a quarter to a half.
Yeah. Regardless, it was a long ride of just.
Yeah.
And so, but we got on scene and we saw the boat, and I think the one guy might have been some type of first responder as well, because I think we talked about that afterwards, and maybe Chad knew him or something. But regardless, the guy, it was 2 guys and a kid on the boat, and they were pointing at it. And then once we got on scene, and we were like, oh, this is a body, and it's been down for quite a bit. And then we were like, all right, you guys are good. We waved them off, and then it was a good 30 to 45 minutes of just us sitting there.
And so, the part that Jack is probably trying to be a little appropriate about.
Yeah, I don't know what we can say,
we
but
do whatever we want. So we approach the body, and you maybe can see off to the left of the screen. There's a white light or this table, but we see this big white blob in the water from a distance. And I remember at first being oh, it's a buoy. And then being it's not a buoy, maybe it's an animal. No, it looks more human-like. And then I remember being so bleached that I was maybe it's a dummy.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to say. And then, maybe bloated too, maybe the rubber blew up from the salt water.
We've lost one before. That's not terribly uncommon. But the kicker is what we figured out was this is a human, because as we pulled up, it was pretty mutilated. So the stomach had distended and was essentially keeping it afloat from, I think it's methane when it decomposes. Because from my understanding, you sink, you decompose, methane builds up, you float. So he was doing this alien abduction, float in the water, stomach out.
Feet still under because of his boots.
His head was no longer and was hence replaced by this mush.
Spaghetti.
Yeah, and his cock.
His hammer.
Yeah.
His hog.
His fucking schwanz was fully intact. And I gotta give it to him for how decomposed the rest of his body was. He had a fucking hammer on him. Bless his soul. I think we both were a little bit jealous at the time.
Well, and also I feel we can talk about it. Once you've done this a decent amount of times and you've been on scenes like this, you try and make light of the situation, and you try and all right, you're not just gonna in your head constantly go over I have a dead body right next to me. So you kind of make jokes, you make light of the situation, You crack a few jokes between like the guys that you're with. But so, me and Will were sitting out there for a decent amount, just admiring.
Yeah.
Is the word that we could
not
use.
knowing what to do.
Yes.
Half knowing, okay, the Coast Guard and the Sheriff's
Yes.
Department
And
is
then
coming eventually.
Yeah, that's when we found out that other resources were coming, and we were like, okay, so we're gonna be here until they show up, and then
Yeah.
we're probably gonna get like off the scene. Like they're gonna take over.
I remember saying like, I'm not
Yeah.
fucking touching
I'm
this
not
thing.
getting in the water.
Yeah. And I think also like, from what I remember, both kind of like, I think this is outside of our wheelhouse. Like,
Absolutely.
I think this is a little over our pay grade.
Well, we didn't have at the time.
No
we didn't carry
protocol.
body bags, especially like not the water body bags.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have a protocol per se to go like through this type of recovery. But
Yeah.
so going forward, we sat there for a long time, just next to this guy, just waiting, and then finally when I think it was Coast Guard showed up first,
Yeah.
and they
came from
arrived,
the
and they were just in like regular Navy BDUs,
Useless.
useless, and like we're like, do you guys have a body bag? No, they don't have a body bag. And then maybe like a good like 10, 15 more minutes go by, Coast Guard shows up, and then we're also Sheriff's Department, where they like while these guys are like pulling up on the scene, we're like talking to them about what's going on. We're like take a look at this guy's hog, and they're looking at us like we had 3 heads. Like they
didn't find it as funny.
Yeah, they didn't find it as funny as we did, but going forward, Sheriff's Office pulls up, we ask them if they have a body bag, and it's like 2 or 3 guys on that boat, and they're like, no, we don't have a body bag. So now we're just sitting there kind of with our own dicks in our hands and trying to figure out what we're going to do until HUD then is on the beach, north side, and he's like, come pick me up. So then I think you went
on the Sheriff's
Yeah, you went on the boat, and then I drive back in, but it's, again, now we're in the north side of the beach where the sandbar is a lot deeper, and these waves are breaking out a good long distance. It's like a good like 50, 75 yards of like good surf, and so I'm like trying to tell him to come pick me up. Now he's off comms because he's in the water, and he's sitting in the impact zone, and I'm like, you gotta come to me, and he's like, excuse my French, stop being a pussy, come pick me up. And I so I'm trying to like time the sets, ride in like the back of the wave. I get him on the back. He's telling me that I'm a bitch on the ski and I need to get better. And then so I turn back around, I bring him out, and then now HUD is asking all the questions that we just asked. Body bags, what are we gonna do? And they're all looking at us like, you figure it out. Like we're
it became
they're
clear
the eyes in the skies.
It became clear that and we want to add 2 things I should say I want to add. For those of you that are involved in the ocean rescue community, if you've been in the West Coast, where else was he? Panama City?
Panama, Florida,
City, Dewey Beach.
Rehoboth, RVP.
Mike Hudson had been a lifeguard paramedic for his entire life and had hopped around these places before ending up in New Jersey. And if you know him, you know how he is, but he's not exactly of the 21st century comforting people way of teaching. He very much is trial by fire. So if anything seems surprising, that's just how he was. And the other thing is, I know a lot of people have turned around and said like, oh, why don't you just get a net, like a fishing net, and pick the person up? But the person was so decomposed that wasn't going to be an option. Like, it was clear that they were just going to sloth through that.
He would have mangled through.
And so it started to dawn on us that I was not thrilled that we were going to have to get in the water and put this thing in a body bag.
I wasn't.
Yeah,
you were.
Yeah,
I was on the ski, and I was like, yeah, I'm the operator. There's no way of me getting in the water until, and then so now Will is on the boat, and I don't know if you found it or one of the guys found it.
It was the fucking 10 Coast Guard people that were there after like HUD came out. It was another 20 or 30 minutes, and they finally were like, oh, we have one. And we were like, okay, great. Like, is it aquatic? And they're like, no. And we're like, okay, cool. And so I remember that's when HUD told me, he's like, hey, dude, take the bag, because I was on the sheriff's boat at this point. He's like, take the bag, put holes in it so it can drain, and then get in the water with me. And so that's basically when we got in the water. And you want me to take it over now? So we get in the water, we swim up to this thing, And I mean, it is decomposed to all hell. Like, we are looking at this thing, and there's pretty good chop the whole time, too. There's skin flakes floating off. Like, we're trying to keep our chins above the water. It stinks like all hell. And so finally we go to try, it's Hudson and I in the water, and we go to move this thing. And I remember, at first we had the bag, and the bag, even with the holes, doesn't move through the water. Like, you're dragging a fucking parachute through the water. So it turned into...
It's one of those thick black bags. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen them, but picture the thick black body bags.
Yeah. And we couldn't, at first I remember, we tried to, like, here's the body. We tried to take the bag, not touch it, and put the bag over without touching the body. But between the chop and then just the way the water was moving with the bag, that wasn't working. And so finally HUD's like, hey, you're going to have to grab that fucking thing and put it in the bag. Just like, fuck. And I remember grabbing it, and this was one of the funny moments, and I grabbed it, and my thumb just like, I had gloves on, my thumb went through the chest cavity, just like poked right through, and like any other person, I fucking launched back out. And that's when HUD starts screaming at me, like, you fucking pussy, you fucking blew this, great job, Gulick, you fucking bitch. Going on and on. And keep in mind, the whole time, we're both retching back and forth. So he's actively, like, dry heaving. And I'm like, you think this is as gross as I do? And so, yeah, eventually we just knuckle down, we grab this thing, there's fucking skin sloughing off of it, where it's like floating past our faces. Like, but I remember finally, like, we went to grab this thing, there's like skin sloughing off of it, the fucking head's missing, and looks like, the best way I can describe it is like the inside of a pumpkin, like the guts in there. And there's like juices flowing out of it. It's fucking rotten. All the blood's gone from it, thank God. But like just disgusting. And this dude's cock just flopping around in the water. And it's like, this is great. But we end up wrestling this thing into the bag and zipping it up. And so this kind of started the next evolution of what made this difficult. And that was, we needed to get this thing. We were gonna, so the decision had been made that I think because of where it wasn't a sheriff's department job, it wasn't a local PD, it was a state police. Mm-hmm. And the state police boat wasn't available at the time, so we had to get it to shore. Mm-hmm. I remember that's what we figured out. So we were gonna put it on the sled of the ski, and we run like the traditional high surf ski sled setup.
One was like unlimited Waterman.
Yeah, it was the white
sleds,
inflatable.
yeah.
It's that, thank God, because the small one wouldn't have worked.
No.
But we were going to get it onto the sled. I was going to sit saddle backwards, and we were going to tow this thing in. Mm-hmm. And so I remember one of the biggest things is like, so I get on the sled, and like I'm a stronger person, and I remember like sitting on the saddle with my feet on the one tip of the sled, trying to yank this thing up. But the problem is we had all these holes in it so the water could drain. But
wait, go over the holes. What did HUD do?
Oh, that's coming.
Okay.
But the issue was that this body was so decomposed that like, here's the sled, it's trying to go up the lip, but I'm pulling it, and all it's doing is taking the body and mushing it down into the bottom like a ball. So now I was trying to pull it over the lip like that, and it was catching. So I had like 3/4 of the bag on the sled, and then the rest of it is just the body. And the body now is fucking blocking all the holes at the bottom. So that's where the HUD thing comes in. So our chief, in all his glory, decides this bag needs more holes. Gets like a fucking K-bar knife from one of the boats. And I remember this is where I was really like, wow, HUD's fucking crazy. Is he swims up to it, and I'm watching him take the knife, and with a vengeance, fucking shanking holes into this bag to drain the water out. Except it's very clear that he's not hitting the fucking water, he's hitting the body, because every time he shanks and pulls, there's like a new stream of schmegma pouring out, and it's hitting him. And so I'm watching this like, like just actively retching. But I don't know if it ends up working or like he kind of pushes a little bit, but eventually we get it onto the sled. And then kind of comes getting it in, which I think is a good place for you to take over, because that's more your wheelhouse.
And so so now, to put it in perspective, when you're on a jet ski on a rescue, you try and stand up as much as possible. But now it's like we have Will sitting on the saddle with me. I'm trying to stand as close to the handlebars as I can, but I'm like, this isn't safe just because of how big the chop is, how much wind and waves we have, and then we have this dense weight hanging off the back. But now he's got
heavy.
Yeah,
it was.
And you
really...
have it somewhat on the back of the sled, so now it's like, okay, I can somewhat control it with my weight. But so I have to sit down, and so we're back to back, and you don't have any points of contact.
I think I just had the
because you have
back. What's that railing that goes off the saddle on the back? I don't know if it's an attachment point or whatever, but I have. That's all I have.
So you have
almost
one
like
hand on the bag,
bowl.
one hand like a bowl handle, and we're back to back, and now we're just going over because now me and him are by ourselves discussing what's our plan of action to get this thing in. My first thought. Yes.
That was the limiting factor.
Yes.
It was a green day, we could just beach it.
Green day, we would have just flown right in and passed it off, no problems. But we have the surf, so now I'm going through all the motions of like, all right, what's the safest and what's the most like probable way of getting this guy in so that we can hand the body off. But so my first thought is like, I'm gonna drop him in the surf and just let him float on in, and I was like, I
said no to that.
Yeah, that's it's just not.
I had reached the point that I'm like, I'm not getting back.
Yeah, and also like, God forbid it rips open.
Yeah.
He's now completely
covered.
Yeah, and just he's as much of a meatball that he could have just like exploded in the surf. But so we have him in the bag, and I'm like, all right, I have to time these sets, and we're gonna beach it all together with him on the back, and the body on the sled. So now we're sitting out there. I'm trying to figure out when's a good set coming in. I don't want to get caught in the back. And so a good set finally kind of rolls in. We see our other team on like dry sand with the Stokes basket.
Yeah,
and
at this point, like half the fucking town.
Yeah, we have all the fire. We have a handful of firefighters. But we have like 4 of our lifeguards sitting there. And so we're like, all right, like I'm telling them what we're gonna do, and so we time it. And now I'm riding the back of this set, like wave crumbling. My nose is right behind the whitewater, and I'm slowly just like going. It breaks. I come down, and then it comes to a flat area, and I'm like, Gulick, hold on, I'm gunning it because I need to get this ski somewhat, because North Beach also had a decent amount of erosion where it was the sand was steep.
Yeah.
It was maybe at like a 60 degree angle where like if I go in too hard with him in the back, our nose is gonna hit. We could both fall off. Body goes flying. And so I'm trying to time it with like when to hit the sand, how fast to go, and I finally flat area. I go down, I gun it, and then I get the ski onto the sand, and I try and kill the engine as best I could. But I didn't get all the way up as far as I wanted to, but I got it a decent amount up. That we beached
smooth.
it. Yeah, it was smooth for like what we had to deal with, and we got it up, and that's when like our guys came down, and they're showing like faces of like, oh my God, like Jesus Christ, like what are we dealing with?
And then they caught a whiff.
And then they caught a whiff of like the smell, and we're like, get it off. So we pass the body bag over to the Stokes. They run it up. I'm sitting there on the ski. I get off. I'm just standing next to the ski. I'm like, put me back in the water like as soon as we can. I want to get out of here. Will like takes the body with them up, and then I'll let you continue in 1 second. But I just want to say like, they're all running up, and then I grab like 2 firemen. I'm like, spin me around. I'm getting out of here. I'm not dealing with this. And so I relaunch the ski by myself and just like fly out. I'm like, I'm a little covered just because like I tried to help out as much, but I had like some schmegma on my legs and feet, nothing on my hands. But so I'm riding the ski back, and again, our beach doesn't have the same sandbar, so I try and beach it similar to what we did in North Beach. And I come around, I follow set, and I go to beach it just like as fast as I could just to get out of the water. And I drop a good like 2-3 feet with the ski. You weren't there for this, but I just like, I remember I just landed on it. Don's down at the beach, our beach manager, Don Klein, the homie.
Yeah.
He's standing right there. I beach it. I get off. Yeah, he's like Jesus Christ. I remember like the front compartment of the ski like popped open. I just slam it back shut. I get off the ski. I'm like I don't want to talk about it right now. I just go up, decon under a shower, just like, scrub everything off. I'm just thinking about it, and then you can take over from what you dealt with.
Yeah.
After.
So mine wasn't
Disgusting.
exactly riveting. The fire department was nice enough to charge a line. Decon me, which they just sprayed me with a fire hose and then some dish soap, which I don't think really did anything, but like at the time, which is I guess comforting to know I didn't have that stuff on me like for certain. And then I got put. This was the part that pissed me off. So I was freezing fucking cold at that point, like so fucking cold. And I remember that what do we call it? The green truck. The mule?
No.
The Vietnam?
Yeah, Vietnam.
Era,
Yeah, Vietnam.
Something like that. But I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna hop in. Can you guys drive me back to the fire department? And they're like, no, we don't want to get you the inside of this thing wet. And at that point, like, I was so shot that immediately I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, I'm fucking freezing right now. Mm-hmm. And so eventually I just got in the back of it. So I'm like, fucking going back to HQ, just shivering. But yeah, then we got back. I think now is a good time. There's a part of the story after this I want to talk about, but that's more, I think, going into what we did well.
I want to mention too that the fire department was very grateful to let us use their actual showers. We had like nice hot showers afterwards.
Yeah, we took a hot shower after.
We bring
Not together.
We bring the ski and the sled out, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna clean the ski. We might have to, because we have 3 skis, so I'm like, all right, we might have to switch the one ski out and put a different ski on the beach now, just because that one's disgusting.
Yeah, we're like, what the fuck are we supposed
disgusting.
to do? Like, is this like hazard? Like, is this biohazard? Like, what?
We don't really know.
Yeah.
Like, we're trying to figure it out as we go. But like, so we're washing both those. I just remember HUD came down and was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, trying to ski, clean the ski." And he's like, "Solar, it's sterile.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Put it back on the beach." I'm like, "Okay." So we have like other guards put it back on the beach. We go through the motions of just like figuring out what we're doing after that. And then I remember me and you talked for a little bit, and then we sat in North Stand together and talked it over for a little bit. And that's when we kind of like came to like grips. Like, that was foul. That was very disgusting. We've both like dealt with a few CPR incidences or drownings since then, but that for me was the most gruesome.
Completely
like
new.
Easily the most gruesome because they had no face. And it was just all those things leading up to it.
I have yet to ever see a body that's remotely
that was
close to that.
Mangled. And so like then we came to grips of just like talking about that, and then that's where we can kind of get into like now looking back on it 4 years later, what we could have done better and what we did do well. And
let's start off with what went well. Let's start from the start. I know one of the things that on my side, like right off the bat, I was so pumped about that I thought went well is I fucking love those top half long sleeve rash guard like wetsuit tops
that we now
with
have.
the front zipper. Those, I remember buying that, and I think it was at the beginning of that season for that sole fucking reason of like, hey, it's a day that I might need to go out on the water. I don't know how long I'm going. Like, it might be cold. I want something that I can just grab and pop on quick, because I remember when it got hit out, I keep it like in an area that can be grabbed, but I think I had it up on 0, and I may have told you or somebody else like, hey, when you come down, grab my top and bring it down with you. And I am so fucking happy I had that thing to just throw on quick, because I think those are worth their weight in gold. And like the Visla, is it? What's the company?
Visla.
Yeah, they have one that I think was like $110 for like a 2 or 3 mil.
Worth
like
it.
it wasn't anything. The next one I'm big about, and just stop me if there's anything that like you have one that I'm just going over. But I like, the big one was the timing of it, because off the bat we didn't know, hey, is this a body that can be worked? So I remember like I work in EMS, Jack doesn't, so going there, like I was going to be the one who made the determination and kind of directed the care if that need be. And so like if that was a workable code, like that's someone that for whatever reason fresh, given unknown downtime, so like that would have been unlikely probably the more I think about it, but that would have been a whole nother set of logistical clusterfuck If it's like, oh shit, like, do we take that guy onto the fisherman's boat and start working him? Do we get him on the sled and just get him in the land? Like, what? That's a discussion for another time. But what I liked is our pacing when it came out was like rescue tempo. Like, we were moving, we were getting there, we were rushing. But then once we realized, hey, this is not workable, taking that timeline and slowing it down to like turtle speed, because it's like that's where you see people get hurt. Or like, I had a call once, and I'm not gonna say the town or anything or who was involved, but basically I saw a fire department that it was a clear recovery, and it was hectic, and they were moving at rescue speed, and I'm like, someone's gonna get fucking hurt. Like, you guys need to tone this down, because this is how people get killed, because we're rushing, we're gonna make mistakes when this is a recovery. Like, maybe people are watching, but frankly right now there is no fucking reason to move at like breakneck speed. Which I thought that went really well, of controlling the pace of the call, and then once it, not that there were any inherent dangers, but once it got to a point that we could slow things down and think, like, doing that. Is there anything, like, up until that point that you...
I will say just, like, and I know, like, I feel like this is, like, kind of, like, a general statement, but, like, the communication, like, even though, like we shit on HUD about, like, all the shit that he would say, like, in those kind of situations, like, just being able to, like, talk each other through things, I feel like that was very good. Like, me and you had good comms, just, like, going back and forth what we're gonna do, like, even like going to the call and like setting up the ski and everything. Like, thank God we had our ski like prepped like we usually do, but like just having it like all squared away, we get in the water, and then we're talking everyone through what we're gonna do, where we're gonna go, and then when we're on scene, like being able to, like you said, like determine what we're going to do next was very well, and like we said before, it was very raw for us. Like we've never dealt with anything like that, so like it was very good of us just like taking that step back and being like, all right, where we're going from here, what we're gonna do. I feel like I might be jumping over some stuff, but just like going forward with like the beach and everything, like we were just like talking nonstop, just going through like the motions of what we're gonna do next, like, or how we're gonna take this, because it was very new, and it was a learning experience.
And I think that's gonna bring me to my next big one. But I think for like the actual call, there wasn't anything that jumped out at me as like things we did super well. But as a whole, like from when we were on scene, I just think like the adapting to the incident, like we slowed the pacing down and we could think about it, and we adapted and we made it work. But afterwards, the big one I want to talk about is us going to stand and talking, because I'm huge on like the whole critical incident debrief, and I think that was because I remember like that was my first like big fucking, like, I always thought about like, oh shit, like these are the kind of things that can give people issues, and kind of hold my breath about it. But even to this day, like, really doesn't faze me, or at least that I know of. Like, I have anxiety in general, but like I don't think it's from that. But like in general, I don't think that really messed with me too much, because we took the time to like, hey, 30 minutes to just collect ourselves, go shower, get a warm shower, unwind. And then on top of it, we went right to stand together, and we sat there for like, I think an hour or two or more, and just talked it out because I remember like feeling very numb after, like very shell shocked, and like, oh, okay, that was fucking legit, but also that was the first time I've ever seen that in my life, or had to do that, and like almost like kind of holding my breath, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel like. And we had that opportunity to talk about it, which I think is fucking huge. And then on top of it, like, our group of guys, we went out later that night, had beers, like, talked about it there, and just kind of decompressed as a whole. And I think that process is huge, especially with unique instances like that. Like in the EMS world, it's things affect people differently. You could have a seasoned provider that goes on a call, and there's something about that call that hits them. But run of the mill, like if it's a CPR nursing home, that's something we do 1,000 times. Unless you're a newer provider, maybe there's something there, like your fucking grandma's in a nursing home, so it hits you or something like that. But these these unique situations that don't come a lot, I think are great. And then especially like in our ocean rescue dynamic, we have a lot of 16 to 19 year olds, and 16 to 20 I'd say is our main population of like people that work there. And a lot of them, like, they're seeing stuff for the first time and doing these high stress things for the first time. So I think it's very good to talk with those people after, and a lot of it has to be voluntary from what I've heard. Like, a lot of those critical incident debrief stuff, you can say like, hey, do you want to talk about this? And if they want to, yes, but having a forced talk about it apparently isn't as effective.
No, and I agree with that statement. By the way, if any nicotine company wants to sponsor Misfit specifically Zyn, Lucy, I know Shane Gillis gets those Lucy's, that'd be great. We use those a lot on the beach. But going back to what we were talking about before, what you were saying, like what we did after, and I'm not like condoning drinking like after calls, but like, I'm not saying like you get hammered, but like like going out with like who's a social beer, and like like going to the bar and just sitting down like somewhere quiet and having a few beers and just being like, listen, like that was fucked up. Like we just dealt with something that like any lay person probably will never see in their life, and just like sitting there with your boys and shooting the shit about what you just dealt with the few beers always goes a long way. I know like almost every time. I don't know if this is like the right way to say it, but like almost every time like we've dealt with like drownings, water rescues, anything like that, like we get together and like we'll like throw a few back and just be like, that was crazy. Like now we have to come to grips of what we just dealt with, and it always helps me out personally. Just like going back through the motions and talking about, not even like talking about what you did well, what you did bad, just like talking about the situation. But now I have a few things that I want to talk about that I definitely could have done better on the call. And like I remember HUD always talked about, as an operator, you always have to have a dive knife on you, and I didn't have it on that time. Or I might have had the one that I used to have that rusted in the hilt, if that's what it's called. Like and I might have not been able to get it out, or I might have just not had it on me at the time. But like having a dive knife saves lives. I remember a different call I went on. I had to cut the rope from a mast of a sailboat so a lady would like let go, and I had it on like my shoulder instead of my hip. Having a dive knife on you goes such a long way, and it can change the scope of a rescue. And like that's one of the things that I wish I could have done better. Or
do you think it's important the flathead, the flat tip ones versus the pointy tip?
I think it depends on not even just experience, but like having the sharp one is dangerous. That's just going that just speaks for itself. Having a sharp dive knife can, because it like say I had a sharp one on my hip and the hilt was like the fabric instead of the plastic, and we're hitting the chop and I lean on like the handle of the jet ski, and I don't know, but maybe somehow I bump it into my hip and the nose goes into it. It's just one of those things that can happen. I'm not saying it's going to, but having the flathead, you don't have to worry about that at all.
And you rig yours on your belt, right?
Yes, I have it like rigged on like my fin belt now, and I'm able to like grab it if I need to, and it has like a little button. But like some of those, like the fabric ones, like I know we've sewn them onto the shoulder, and then we'll put like a rope connected to it, in like the little eye hole on the end of the knife, and those fall out, and like I've seen them fall out on people's shoulders, and like and then you're on the ski and it's swinging back and forth. Now if you have a sharp point, you just go bump it, hits you in the gut, hits you anywhere, and that could happen if it's a sharp like flathead, and like the sides could hit you. But like I always think the plastic with the buttons, those are the much better ones. Like and you can get those on Amazon for like $100 and some bucks. You can spend $400 on a nice one if you want to, but it's gonna rust regardless, and you have to take care of your dive knife. But that's a whole nother discussion.
I think the point that I would change, right? I wouldn't say like went badly, but I think could have gone better is the body bag.
I was gonna say yeah.
So I believe they make aquatic body bags. We have one now.
We have two in our
and
truck.
Admittedly, I haven't taken it out to look at it, which I should.
I have, but it's just collecting dust in the bottom of or under the seats in our truck now. But we haven't pulled it out per se and looked at it. But I know like it says aquatic, and I trust the company that it's well rigged.
Like looking at it now, I think the best possibility for one would be one that it has like you can zip. So like I think that one zipped 3 sides, so you could open like a book when it was fully unzipped. But I think one that is like excessively fucking large that has you can zip it on 2 sides so that you can open it up like a cylinder and kind of I feel like that would like flow through the water better. That maybe like if the body's in more of a I could have worked with ours, but his legs were dangling a bit. But if the body's floating there in the water, like you can kind of take it and run it through the water in that like cylinder, like I don't know what the way to describe it, but like but have it run through the water so that you're not pulling the tarp against the water. It's kind of the edges flowing. And then when you get it over the body, zip both ends. And then have like, hey, there's not holes in it, but there's ports that like, okay, if maybe a couple, so if like one port's covered, you could go to a different one that you could unscrew it, drain it, and then screw it back on, and the water's out. I think would be the best design.
Like I know like on a lot of those buoys that we have to rig up for the Rooney swim, they have like the one-way air. So like it's like you blow the air in and it can only go, it can't come out even when you take like the nozzle off. But I was also thinking like that mesh that like on like snowboard jackets that like you unzip on like your sides to like let air out. Like those are like super fine, thin fabric. Like if you had those on like the sides or like the bottom of like those bags where it's like nothing's gonna come out except for like water because it's so thin. Like schmegma's not gonna be like leaking out of the bottom of it, and like with those zippers on the sides, that would work very well. I don't know if they make those. They might. I haven't deep dove into those type of bags, but like having those rigged up in our ski at all times would have changed the process. It would have made it so much more quicker.
I think outside of that, the only other thing that I think could have went better that I would have changed is looking back now. I wonder, like, with those surf conditions, had we just put the body on the Coast Guard boat, and because the Coast Guard has the docks at Sandy Hook, so had the Coast Guard boat went around and had the state police meet at the docks. I don't know if there's anything weird with like it has to be recovered at that location or what. But I think from like a safety standpoint, that probably would have been the next best option, or the best option is to just. And I think eventually we would have been able to got it on the boat somehow. But yeah, and then maybe. The only other thing I think I was getting on the boat, like some sort of leverage thing for something in the water, like a big fucking piece of 2x4 that you stick in the water and you fucking lay it flat against, and then you kind of attach it, pull it, and you have people push down, so it just fucking raises it up and then onto the boat.
But like you said, like we were just two 22-year-olds dealing with this pretty extensive call, like. And in no way, shape, or form am I shitting on Sheriff's Office, State Police, or Coast Guard. Like
I'm shitting on the Coast Guard boat that was there at this time.
I'm not. But like, if like leaving that in our hands.
Did you say you were shitting on the State Police?
No. I'm not shitting on the State Police in any way. But like leaving that in our hands was a little crazy looking back on it. But like if we could have somehow had it float, and then like if they had a Stokes basket or anything that we could have just put it on their boat, they pass it off. Like
just put the Stokes basket in the fucking water.
I don't know. Yeah, there's like so many things that like looking back that we could have done differently. Like you guys could have sat out there. I could have swam out or drove the ski back in, grabbed the Stokes, give it to them. But like again, we don't know the general guidelines of body recovery in their protocols. Like if they were allowed to do that, if that would have added more of a case for the State Police or if they had to write up a report. But regardless, like that could have been something that could have been spoke about between the parties that were all there. But I don't know. I felt like we did do a good job beaching that and passing it off. And,
it went fine.
And all of that. But like it could have been differently if they were like, oh, just pass it off to us. Like we'll take care of it, and we would have been like, sweet.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason for us to.
That's what we thought it was gonna be from the start.
Yeah. Like I'm not, and like we didn't put our lives in danger beaching it. Like we've had the training. It was fine, but it's just something that it could have been thought about a little bit more. But going forward, I felt like there was very minimal changes that I would make to the whole process. But it like I do think having the dive knife, having the body bag ready for us would have changed a few more things, and just like I don't know. I felt like our comms were really good. I felt like everything else really went well besides that.
Yeah, especially for it being a first time event.
Yeah.
For pretty much everybody involved.
And thank God we had the big sled. Like now we have a smaller sled for one of our smaller skis
which
that
you can't go on if
you can't even bring 2 junior guards
above
on there.
200 pounds.
Yeah, like that and that's why like those unlimited Waterman sleds. Yeah, I think it's like 1,600 on the Unlimited Waterman website.
Waterman, if you're listening to this and you want
Unlimited
to
Waterman,
send more to Seabright, they follow the Misfit Medicine.
Really, Unlimited Waterman, please.
Yeah, if you want to.
I'm in the process of buying 2 of them. And it's like $3,400.
Seabright Ocean Rescue.
And we're broke, and I could really use one. They have like I know some of them have like the riggings of the bungee cords already attached to the sleds. Like we could have had that, slide the body bag underneath and then you would have had more points of contact. You put the body bag underneath those rigged up bungee cords. Now that thing is not going anywhere. I could have done so much more. But regardless, Limited Waterman, I love your sleds. Send me a few prototypes. I would love to test them out.
I've talked with a guy who runs their page before too.
It's sick. But those like that helped us out like greatly. That changed the game. And then just I felt like we had the bigger. I think we used the Yamaha ski, the big red. Yeah, I think it was the red Yamaha. I'm not a big Yamaha fan. I'm not going to shit on Yamaha right now, but I've had a lot of problems with the engines that I've had to deal with in the past. I love Sea-Doo, and I know like Sea-Doos have like all the little gadgets and gizmos on them and that's cool, but like just a big back of those skis, like those go a long way.
Big back.
Yeah, I love a big back ski. I want to talk about now. Say if it was a workable body, and we can kind of get into that. Say it was a fisherman that hit his head and went in the water, and now we had to work him in that. What we could have done differently with that is, and I want to talk about this because Pelican, if you're listening, I love your cases. Now we can rig up.
They're not giving shit out.
I know, but a nice Pelican case. Say it had like a bunch of different like EMS gadgets and gizmos that we could use in that. Now we could have that rigged.
I think North American Rescue. I think North American Rescue does make a preloaded Pelican.
Yeah.
That's for because I think it's the BRAG, the big BWRAG, Big Wave Risk Assessment Group, that they came to Long Branch at one time. I think they did a deal with North American Rescue, and I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure North American Rescue has a Pelican that you can buy that's like preloaded with shit. I think almost for that exact.
Yeah.
It's like I think it's considered like an aquatic or like boat safety kit.
And like say like I'm reaching here. I'm not an EMS guy, but like say we threw in like he was like unconscious, but we got an OPA in. We can get a little oxygen on there. Like I know like with drownings, like you don't want to do that because you could like puke and you can fill up the lungs and all that shit. But like say like we could go through all those motions with that going forward, but. That's just all like what ifs and thinking about the different types of calls that we deal with.
The biggest thing if it was drowning is if he's in cardiac arrest, it's compressions, sort of. So there's more trains of thoughts coming out of okay, compressions help, but the reason this issue started the first time was they're not oxygenated. So like getting oxygen on board, and then even more and more now you see there's people that don't have a palpable pulse, but they're in a low flow state, which is a little outside of my knowledge, that they won't have a pulse, but technically there's enough shit going on there that it's just their blood pressure is so low that you can't feel one, but they still have a pulse. So actually there's the Okayest Medic podcast guy, which I just listened to his episode on this with another guy, I don't remember his name, that they were kind of sharing examples and stories that some of these people, and they're not saying to do this, but he shared a story of a big fucking fat guy who fell off his bed and was just wedged in a spot that he couldn't breathe. It was a positional issue that his airway was covered. and he got there first, and he said he rolled the guy, but like he couldn't roll the guy to the point to start compressions, but he could roll the guy to the point to like move his head and open his airway. And then he said he just started bagging him and getting some oxygen on board, and before the BLS even got there, because he's a medic, the guy like regained consciousness and had palpable pulses come back. So there might be some debate for like, it's not a terrible idea, like if maybe some sort of oxygen source that, like, the thing is though is there's going to be the train of thought that he's in an unstable environment, so the main focus would be getting him out of that environment. But things that you could probably do quickly and securely is like put a fucking nasal cannula on the guy, put a non-rebreather, whether or not it's going to stay in place, but like the whole passive oxygenation thing, and then move them. Or like hell, if there's a sheriff's department boat and you have 2 EMTs or a medic or something like that, like you can make do a little bit. Like if the Coast Guard was there and that guy was workable, I'd say let's put him on the Coast Guard boat. I'd be willing to bet they have an AED on there. They had an oxygen source. Like you could do a lot on the back of the Coast Guard boat until they get to shore, and I think that might be the safest, most effective, because like the timing of, hey, do we want to do something that we can get this guy onto a boat within a minute, or are we going to wait till we can get him on shore within 5 to 10 minutes, which you kind of have that like 5-minute window before people really start to be non-viable. But
that's the thing, we were a good ways out. Like,
I think the boat would have been the best option.
Absolutely. That's all I really got.
Yeah, I'm cool to call it.
Yeah, and stay safe, swim near lifeguard, and always have friends that you can talk about this stuff with.